Offchain Reactor spitting fire. The NFT analyzer. Diving deep into projects. He's the crypto energizer. From your mint coins to tokens. He's got all the intel. Web3 wizardry to show you where to excel. He's got the insights like a digital magician, unveiling secrets of the blockchain with precision. Wild stories from the web, he's always in the know. Crypto community, vibing where the treasures grow. Web3 wonder.
Yes, my friends, you're seeing this right. 2 chain reactors in one day. Hey, within a couple hours of each other. I love it. You deserve it. It's good to see you guys again. Man, a really, really special episode here today with some awesome people. Got to thank you, by the way, taking a break from the meme coin trenches to be with us. That goes for you on stage here with me, too. For anybody watching at home, though, man, you see a new hot AI token. You see GOAT hit all-time high. You see a rogue AI nuking Bitcoin. Keep us plugged in. We'll appreciate that. Hey, guys, smash the like, share out the show. Every one of you, for real. Share this show out. Share it with your friends. Please, thank you. Please, again. Man, by the way, guys, I muted you all. You can unmute whenever, but I am going to pass around in a quick second for introductions. But, guys, we're here to talk about, finally, SlamNet. I'm excited about this. I know you guys have been waiting for it for a while now. But first, I want to introduce you to some of the main characters, our family here at SlamNet. It's some. You've met some already. You met Randy. You met Chris. You met Scott. There's others behind the scenes. There's more in front of you that you don't know are part of SlamNet yet, but those will be announced soon. Let me go around and do introductions here. We have Paul Dubé from Troon Technologies. We have Nate Geraci. I nailed the last name. I know I'm getting that right now, finally. The ETF guy. Our second appearance here on Chain Reactor. After the third, you get a nickname. I'm leaning towards ETF God. I don't know how you feel about that one, but
I'll take it.
I'm leaning. It's got a ring to it. It's fitting at the very least. The man, the myth, the legend, Mo. Is it Ezeldin? Do I got that right? Awesome stuff. Head of tokenomics at Animoca. Man, we've chatted once before, but your reputation out there as the tokenomics guy in Web3. Really, really awesome to have you. A real treat, and again, excited to dive into SlamNet with you. There's certain things I don't know what I can and can't say, so that's why I'm extra glad you're here to help keep us in line. And then last and certainly not least, my boy Chris, a.k.a. Hustle Hat from Crypto Slam. Good to see you, man. Good to see all you guys. Thank you for joining us here. We're going to talk, and I'm thinking, well, let me pass around. Let me have you guys introduce yourselves as brief or as long as you guys want. Maybe starting, we'll go Paul and then work our way around.
Sounds good. Looks like my camera's frozen here, guys. Got some Panama, maybe some Panama bandwidth issues. Let me just flip it on and back off. Don't know if that's going to work. So I'm the founder of Troon Technologies. We're an enterprise dev shop. I'll give you the quick download on it. We invest into startups in Web3 space. We have our own products. And obviously, we're a service-based company with about 80 to 85 employees around the world. SlamNet, ironically, or Crypto Slam was our first investment many years ago. So we've known Randy since the inception, did the pitch deck, and was able to lure in wonderful people like our Animoca boys on the call over a period of time. So my day is pretty much made up of advising and biz dev down here in Panama and across the world, and doing like venture advising and deploying capital right now through a new fund here in Panama. So pleasure. I'm happy to be on the show for the first time.
Yeah, and I want to get you back solo too. We'll talk about that afterwards, but great to have you here, Paul. Nate, I'll throw it to you again. I think people here know you from previous appearance, but have at it.
Yeah, so I'm clearly bringing the TradFi element here, as I told you before, to all of you degens. But no, I run an investment advisory firm called the ETF Store. I host a podcast called ETF Prime, where I'll interview guests really from across the ETF and investment landscape. I blog at something called the ETFeducator.com. And then I co-founded something called the ETF Institute, which offers professional education and certification on ETFs. More importantly and relevant here, I also recently launched a crypto-focused podcast. It's called Crypto Prime. And I'm excited because I'll be a voice in the SlamX community. And if you can tell by what I've done on the ETF side, really a main thrust of what I try to bring here is just education. And that's what I'm trying to do on the crypto side, is really bridge TradFi and DeFi. So I'm excited to be here.
I've told Nate before too, he's in an interesting spot as far as he's bringing TradFi guys here into the crypto side of things, and he's doing the other side of it too. He's bringing guys like me who never touch TradFi, never. But crypto has really woken me up to that, and I'm interested and I'm hungry to learn. And he is the guy bridging that gap. It's pretty darn awesome. Glad to have you here in the SlamX family, but SlamNet family as well. Mo, tell us about yourself.
GM, everyone. Yes, I'm Mo Ezuddin. I'm the head of tokenomics at Animoca Brands. Animoca Brands were fundamentally an ecosystem builder. We have an investment arm. I think we're either known as a VC for investment, or we're known as a games company. We're neither but both at the same time, and much more. And I oversee a lot of the token advisory work that happens. So really focusing on how we can bring real businesses, real projects, real ideas to life in Web3 with different digital assets. And I've been working with the SlamX team, or the SlamNet team, shall I say, for a while. The other hat I wear quite proudly as well is I'm on the special council of ApeCoin DAO. So a big believer in decentralized governance. And just listening to Nate speaking about education, I was a high school teacher in a previous life for 10 years and a mathematician before that. So big believer in education being a bridge.
I love it, man. By the way, guys, there's people watching over on YouTube and on X. I can see the comments on YouTube. So if you're watching on X and you do want to get questions in about this ecosystem, about anybody here, you may want to come over to the YouTube side. It is what it is. It's much easier that way. And there are questions. We'll get to them. But Mo's one of those guys you might want to do a little poke and see what we can get. I'm just saying, I certainly would. And then let's kick it to Chris Hustle. I'm so used to calling you Chris.
I know. But well, first off, what's up? I'm really excited for this. We're going to be pumped for this show. I know we got some big heavy hitters on this show today. If you guys don't know, man, you got to research a lot of these people on here. It's your boy Hustle Hat. I do the side hustle also. I am the head of marketing over at Crypto Slam. I've been in crypto for about 10 years. I jumped in originally in 2015, right when Ethereum launched. Caught a little bit of that craze, took a back seat, then jumped back in 2017 when the ICO craze jumped off and Tesla, all that good stuff. I've been working in the industry for some time. I was a developer originally. And essentially, I built a company called Posse Studios. So we specialize in GameFi, all that other good stuff. So we're also building tech there. But all the good stuff happening here at SlamNet, SlamX, this is what we're driving forward. And we're pretty excited because we got some pretty amazing products on the horizon.
Right on, man. Okay, I'm going to put a couple resources on the screen for you guys real quick who are watching. Things you might want to pull up, and just something well, first off, bear with me with these screens. I've never had 5 people on stage before, so I just want to make sure everything's fitting and working and you can see it right. But I want to put slamnet.xyz. It's something you can use as a resource as you're following along the conversation here. We have our white paper or light paper. I'm going to be honest, I like to play the role of the group idiot. I don't know the difference, but that's my role, and that's why I'm probably the right one to be asking some questions to you guys here today. But you can certainly follow along here, clicking on the Slam token, I think documentation in there, and you'll see all kinds of stuff about SlamNet, which we will be talking about here. Before that, even though, guys, highly encourage you to do what I talked about on the earlier show here, claim your .slam domain. Right? These are first come, first serve. You want to lock up your name in this ecosystem. I can just say it will be very useful for you. We'll see what we can, again, pull out of the guys here as far as what to expect with it. Don't know how deep we can get with it, but you do want that name, and you probably want to get your own proper name here. So dive into those sites there. So I want to kick this off, I guess, with the purpose of SlamNet and maybe some problems out there in the ecosystem. In fact, I think I named the show with this in mind, the problem of fragmentation. I guess it's safe to say, we've seen tremendous growth out here. Hang on, let me fix the screen here. Again, I'm going to be juggling this. Sorry, guys. But we've seen tremendous growth out here in crypto and in NFTs, and we've been tracking the NFT side of things over on Crypto Slam. It's been incredible to watch, guys. It has been this multi-chain ecosystem growing over the past few years exactly how we thought it would. It's why we've always been multi-chain focused. But we're at this interesting point where the degree at which we are multi-chain has fragmented this space. So it's fragmented the user base. I imagine, and some of you guys I think are developers, I imagine this is a harder ecosystem for developers to build in. Again, with that user base that's scattered, with products across all these chains, some of them kind of redundant, everybody carving out their own path. But it's also fragmented our perspective on how this space is growing. So what if we could pull it all together, and better yet, give everyone access to all of it, all of that data, all of that insight, all in one place? And that's where I want to really dive in, starting this off, is the issue of fragmentation. And this, Chris, I could kick it to you first, but anybody can weigh in. I think that's how this conversation will go. Speak to this issue of fragmentation. Has this space grown maybe out in a way more than it has grown like kind of bigger? Has it grown wider in a way and more fragmented? And what are the downsides to that? Maybe Chris, kick that off, and then anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of look back. We got to go from a little bit from the beginning to kind of get an understanding of where we're going. So essentially, this is all growing pains. A lot of people see, because we are so early, we say the word early all the time, but the truth of the matter is we really are. So when you look at how many actual crypto users there are compared to how many people really have no idea what's going on here, there's still a massive gap. So when you first develop a chain, or you develop any protocol or anything individual, what's the first things that you need? You need the foundation. So you need to have your DEX, you need to have your marketplace, you need to have all those things that bring in liquidity, that bring in users, gaming, all that good stuff. But the issue is still a lot of the tech, the underlying tech that develops these things, it's still pretty rudimentary. So being able to cross in between and bridge these technologies and tokens, you have EVM chains, you have stuff that Polkadot's doing, stuff that you can see with Cosmos, but even then, there's still gaps in all of this. So just now, we're starting to finally get to a point where abstraction is really making a difference. And you can see companies like Third Web, Sequence, et cetera, where they're really leveraging this tech, but we're just now touching on that. So the industry is still fragmented, but that's not a bad thing necessarily. It's kind of giving an opportunity for people to come in and sort of bridge all these gaps. As far as like how SlamNet and all of them are kind of doing all this stuff, that's like the core of what it is that we're really focused on. So like SlamNet's solution is to like address fragmentation in Web3 by more focusing on the layer that no one really pays attention to. Like we always see the layer 0, 0, 1, we see 2s, but it's actually the data layer. The data is really what brings all this together. So when you look at prediction markets and LLMs, I mean, big data has been a driving force in the industry over the past 3 decades, and it's going to continue to grow. It's only getting bigger. People are paying attention to AI and blockchain because that's what's hot. But having that enriched data, it's kind of what unifies the entire experience. And that's why you also see what we're doing with SlamX and a lot of the other stuff, because it's bridging that gap also through culture. It's kind of like the glue that brings it all together. So essentially straightforward, the less esoteric side of that is that SlamNet's accomplishing this by kind of like seamlessly bridging different networks and Web3 gaps through like enriched data. So allowing like straightforward asset transfers, data sharing, interactions between decentralized platforms. By like unifying disparate blockchains, protocols, and ecosystems, solutions like these can reduce the complexities in Web3 and make it more accessible and efficient for everyone involved. That's essentially the idea.
Nate, I was thinking as he was saying that, something, probably a perfect question for you, actually. Okay, before we went live, you were talking about can we call it the cult? That's the term of the month, I think, right now, right? The cultiness of this space and how maybe intimidating it is for TradFi people to come over. Right, the lingo, the verbiage, maybe it's some of the vibe and attitude here too, but is also the fragmentation, how scattered things are. Is that also maybe off-putting, but also confusing to maybe the TradFi audience?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge because in the TradFi space, and everybody here knows this, TradFi is still getting their head around Bitcoin and in Ether. And then you start looking at all of these other chains and projects and tokens that are out there. It seems really daunting to somebody in TradFi to understand what's really going on with those different projects and protocols. Like from the outside looking in, one of the things that TradFi sees is a lot of almost infighting between the different chains, because you get a passionate user base or you get a passionate developer core around a particular chain. As you guys know, that really forms a community. There's positives to that, but then you get sort of this fighting between the different communities out there. And from a TradFi perspective, that's off-putting, and it almost feels like it's too much of an education hurdle to overcome, because again, they're still just learning about Bitcoin and Ether. And so you start adding on all of these other projects. It's a challenge. So yeah, I think fragmentation makes it much more difficult to educate just the average person out there, if that makes sense.
It does. And what I'm doing is just laying out some of the problems I want to get into in a moment, how SlamNet can solve this, what those solutions might look like. Mo, you being a tokens guy, I imagine, and this is just me from the trader collector side, the fragmentation makes it hard, I imagine, for anybody with a token, because liquidity is also fragmented. Maybe it's all on one chain and you really want it somewhere else. I'm thinking of Offchain that just launched here in the past week. I have yet to bridge anything over there because I just don't want to bridge, right? It's just because I'm stuck in the chains I'm in. Maybe I'm not even on ETH, I'm on other chains and I still have to move something from somewhere to ETH to then go to Offchain. Is that one of the biggest pain points, speaking of fragmentation, that you see on the token side, and to what degree is it a challenge, and what other challenges in the world of tokenomics?
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. I think definitely from a token perspective, liquidity is up there. And what we're seeing, I mean, if you go back to 2017, the narrative with a lot of new layer ones were going to be ETH killers. And fast forward to today, more or less everyone's either building on ETH or finding a way to bridge into ETH. Even with Bitcoin as well, we're seeing a number of layer twos that want to bring that EVM compatibility to Bitcoin as well. And that's fundamentally because of liquidity. Bitcoin has the highest market cap, yet the way we think about it is that there is a vast amount of locked liquidity on Bitcoin and people who are holding Bitcoin and doing nothing with it. Whereas in ETH or Solana ecosystem, it's quite the opposite, where if you're holding ETH, you're either staking ETH in the most basic sense from a consensus layer, or you're taking part in DeFi, GameFi, bridging it into layer twos, layer threes, like you're talking about Offchain. So I do think there is a big fragmentation on liquidity. Interoperability is working towards solving that. But to your point, it's people have limited time and in most instances limited liquidity as well. So because of these two as constraints, you cannot be on every chain all the time. So you segment yourself to the chains that have the best connectivity, or chains that you can double down from a narrative standpoint, that I'm bullish on Ethereum because of X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to host most of my liquidity there, or I'm just airdrop farming from one chain to the next, or one protocol to the next. So is fragmentation an issue? Yes. Will it be an issue 5-10 years from now? I certainly hope not.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Hearing Vitalik talk about the future of Ethereum and solutions that are coming that do make it easier is things like seeing your balance. Doesn't matter what chain you're on, and being able to spend that balance, your ETH, no matter what chain. There are solutions coming. It certainly still is a tricky time right now. So I'm looking forward to those solutions getting here. And then Paul, I think you're in the world of development applications. Maybe you could speak to how hard it is for developers to develop again in this ecosystem where the users are just everywhere. And maybe some of them, look, I'm kind of willing to move from place to place, kind of, but some just aren't. Some aren't. It took me years to be able to even just head to Solana and start playing in that meme coin ecosystem, which has been phenomenal, like a ton of fun. But how hard is it to build tools and applications when you know that it might be a really small base? You know, the people are out there that want to use these things, but they're on this platform or that platform, or it's just so fragmented.
Yeah, thank you. I think we started a blockchain academy many years ago, and you're trying to follow the compass of, where the money and the value flows from venture capital releasing into different protocols. And now we've got like 300 plus protocols. So, when you've got a blockchain academy, it's like, where do you go? What do you do? And you try to get into some of these new ecosystems. I think there's a lot of risk. We're not just individual engineers, we're an engineering firm. So we feel like we're more of a labs company that somebody can bring us in and plug into their protocol and bring a lot of value from a product and development standpoint. I think, I just want to go back to the bridge comment a minute ago, because all of the bridges and all of the interoperability it's pretty much a hot mess. That we have over 75 billion in exploits and hacks over since the inception of crypto. And I don't think that number gets talked about enough. And it's just not ideal. It's not ideal to a world that I believe in relation to what, I think where Nate falls as well. I very much fall in the, how do we bring TradFi into this space? And it's really difficult to do that from a development standpoint. Sure, we could build people are building all of these tools. We're building some of the tools to get there. But it's tricky. It's a work in progress. It's this hive mind of unregulated engineers and product people and business people trying to sort of tether all of this together. So yeah, I could feel like I could go on forever about this, but the root of it is data that's going to power all of these financial instruments of the future, and we'll see where we end up with that.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, sir. Maybe getting into how SlamNet is going to solve some of these issues, and a lot of it is data centered. It's data based. The insights you get from getting insights into each of those individual ecosystems, but all in one place. It doesn't matter what the product is. If it's meme coins, if it's NFTs, if it's, whatever it is, sometimes flavor of the month, but maybe sometimes it's a new forever thing, all in one place. Chris, maybe more specifically now, SlamNet, what it is, the components of it.
Yeah.
And this is where I rely on you for
Oh, no, I love it. Yeah, this is the good stuff.
SlamLink and all these awesome products.
We can talk about all that good stuff. Yeah, so like the idea is like people joke around, we're like the boomers of crypto. Like Crypto Slam's been around for a long time now. So like 2018, we've been developing for quite some time. And data isn't really the pretty side of things. Like people see, like, everyone's into the poly markets, meme coins right now, and all that other good stuff. But the reality is people don't look at what powers those things. And not only is the technology fragmented, but the data is fragmented. And that's a big issue. Being able to get accessibility, basically accessible to any data that's not only on chain and across other chains, is a pain in the pain. And not only getting it from just, let's say, doing Solana, which is a Rust-based, environment, and then doing something that might be Solidity or EVM compatible, all those contracts, all that type of data, all that stuff is not always easily just interchangeable. So how SlamNet and how basically SlamChain solves a lot of that is it aggregates all this data. Like we're building what we're really excited for called V4. So not only are we going to be pulling all of this data together, but we're going to be doing NFT data. We're going to be doing data on tokens. We're going to be doing data. Imagine that you have stats from, the NBA, you like top shots and stuff like that. And you'll be able to get that data that's not even on chain. So it's kind of amalgamating all of this data in one place for people to be able to access this to build things. And what makes SlamNet so crucial to this and unique is the system that it's set up as far as a governance wise. So they're able to have people to come in, it doesn't matter where you're from, and commission a DAO and say, hey, look, we're looking to build this, and this with this data. It doesn't matter where you're at or where you're from. We're focusing on bridging that all together. So you can almost look at SlamChain and the idea of what we're building as like a massive infrastructure layer underneath all of this. It doesn't matter whether you're layer 0, 1, 2, 3, what blockchain you're on. We are going to be a data hub. We're kind of looking to center ourselves as the Google of Web3. So having that data where everybody can access that data and be able to build things like, training LLMs, being able to do explorers, indexes, Polymarket, all those different products. You guys got to remember what powers that stuff. And having enriched data is a really big issue right now. People don't realize how much goes into parsing this data, how much goes into sorting through all this, making it accessible and usable. Because really, it's all ones and zeros. If you were to just pull all this data from the chain, most of this, you really can't do nothing with it. So that's where people don't realize where CryptoSlam and a lot of stuff that we're doing here comes into play. We take a lot of that data and we make it usable for everyday people. We dumb it down so people could just simply say, hey, this is what I want to accomplish. We say, hey, this is what you're going to need to do that. Here's the data. You could tap into this data and basically on an as needed basis. And that's where Slam Token will come into all this. And people could use that to, essentially push forward whatever narrative it is that they're going to build. But that's the idea. The idea is to unify and amalgamate all of this data and bring everything together in one place for people to essentially be able to build what it is that they're looking to build. So we're bridging those gaps. We're kind of closing those technologically speaking and also on the data side.
There's something like there's something really exciting when you say bringing off-chain data, like non-Web3 data on-chain.
Really excited for that.
I've never heard anybody talking about that before. And that doesn't mean that conversation's not happening somewhere, but I never heard of it. I never got to imagine what it would look like to take that data and like maybe, like you said, sports. And then I go ESPN in my head, like taking ESPN's data on their website, like from any league, right? NBA, whatever your favorite sport is, putting that on chain. What can you do with that when you combine it with on-chain data? All these on-chain platforms, protocols that have their own prediction markets, like you said, and put them all together and see what people can build with it. But also just to give such a broad view on, again, everything in that ecosystem, again, in sports specifically there. Again, I don't even know. Well, I'll ask you, what are the products you picture people are going to build with these more complete data sets?
Yeah,
And this could
definitely.
go to any of you guys, by the way.
Yeah, go ahead. You guys,
Because
what do you think?
And I do want to say too, it's just the thing has really clicked for me is just how, again, with everything fragmented, like we've been saying, you're often working with just this very incomplete data set. When you know, again, those users are all over. There's more data across all these chains. You got to get it in one place.
No, go ahead. Yeah, jump in.
I mean,
please.
I'm happy to comment here because obviously being part of the technology build in Crypto Slam from its almost from its inception. I mean, I'm really excited. I get excited about data. I think early on somebody said, "Hey, data maybe is not exciting, but it tells stories." And I think those stories, when you connect them to financial assets, get really exciting when you start rebalancing portfolios. And I'm unlikely to take this from an NBA Top Shot standpoint, and more likely to take it from. I mean, I own a ton of Top Shots. I'm a huge sports guy. Yeah, I used to manage a sports book way back when. But I think Slam, what I'm excited about is biz deving and building partnerships and more partnerships and more partnerships with, layers like CCIP and what Chainlink is doing, usable, interoperable enterprise abstraction. That can carry value across an entire network. Where can Slam and its data really power these DeFis, these ramps, these protocols? That's what I get excited about. When you look at the end person's portfolio and you loop in AI to this data and you're rebalancing portfolios with one click of a button, like, to me, that's nirvana. So for me, it's partnerships, biz dev and partnerships in sort of more TradFi ways with the big four and others.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I'll build off what Paul was saying, and that if you think about the traditional financial markets, obviously data powers everything. And I think specifically about the ETF space and the types of products that are being built and the innovation there, underlying all of that is data. And if I go out on a longer term time horizon, we've talked about this before, I'm of the belief that everything will be tokenized. I think our financial markets, I think we're heading towards full security tokenization. When does that happen? I don't know, but I think it's just a matter of time off into the future. And so if you think about that, think about if you have all of this data in one place, the types of financial products that you can build with that. I think that's going to resonate with people. And even if you want to get more esoteric and think about the crypto specific crowd, think about being able to have a token that represents, say, the 500 most popular NFTs on the market or anything like that, right? I think that's going to be really compelling to people. I think it'll be really compelling to developers to be able to build in that environment where there are no limitations on the data sets that they have access to.
I like that you mentioned that. I don't know if you know that we have this on the site, but we do. And I've always wondered what people could do with something like this and then start thinking even beyond that, indexes and what people will do with them, how people trade against them. Again, this is foreign to me. I don't touch anything in finance. I don't touch anything really outside of crypto. So I don't know. But I hear people like our founder, Randy, talking about that and see how excited he gets about it. And I've heard Chris talk about it too. What does that look like? What do the indexes do for people? And why does having data that's on chain, I think that gives you some trust and insight into that data that's behind these indexes or that's powering the indexes. But anybody that can explain more into the world of indexes and how people, I think, trade them. Is that right?
Yeah. And I mean, really what it gets back into is transparency. And, that's when I think about the crypto ecosystem, the first thing that comes to mind for me is transparency and having transparent data sets and being able to build with those transparent data sets. If you think in the TradFi space, that's what an index fund is. If I invest in an S&P 500 index fund, there's full transparency. I know the stocks that are in there. I know the weightings, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be the same in the crypto sphere.
Yeah, I think inevitably what you're going to see is like anything that happens in TradFi, it's what's already happening. Like people are already trading futures, you have perp dexes and all that good stuff. Like you're going to see more and more of traditional finance mechanisms like coming into this space, which most of them already are. So that's generally the idea. The idea of this is to make it secure, it's decentralized, it's transparent. At the end of the day, we can complicate it, but it really is a ledger system for this data. So being able to have access to this data and bringing it back to that and being able to utilize it in a way that's comprehensible, that's kind of like the goal. The issue is people don't realize, in the earlier days of Web 1, there wasn't enough. Remember where we all had to go to the library to get information? Like, you know what I mean? So now you could just click of a button in your phone and you immediately have access to all this data. But an issue arise kind of throughout this whole process. And when like the whole Netscape, the bubble popped and Web2 gave way to social media networks, et cetera, something unique happened. And that's that there was too much data. And we had so much data, there really was no way to sort through all of this. So that's kind of like the idea of what a lot of stuff like this does. These indexes and technology like this allows it so you're able to make sense of all this. And I think we're still figuring out unique ways to do that. And when you marry this with AI, which is what I'm really excited about, piggybacking off of what Paul said, imagine like all the research that Zach XBT and all them do in order to sort through this data. Imagine if I just go to AI and I say, hey, listen, I need to know what happened with this wallet at this time, why this happened. I mean, think about I'm already thinking about government contract. I mean, there's so many people that would want to get involved.
Dude,
in
this line of thought it hits hard. It hits hard. My day is spent researching, and it's for content. And we will get to content here in a moment because we have, I think, quite a few content creators on here right now. But the way having all that data in one spot. Keep going though. I know No,
that was it. That was it. Basically, the idea is like, here's the thing that people don't realize: like blockchain. I really see AI and blockchain as being a match made in heaven. And the reason why is because blockchain actually solves a lot of problems in AI, if you ask me. Like right now, there's a concept floating. I covered this in a show yesterday called proof of humanity, which I'm really excited about. And the idea is now blockchain being able, because now AI is evolving, like you can't really almost tell what's real and what isn't at this point. So and it's scary. It's like really scary. So being able to have stuff like blockchain technology that can come in there and with ZK proofs and stuff like this, that's going to be a power move. That's going to have TradFi people more secure and saying, okay, this is more verifiable. It's more secure. It's more certain. There's less volatility in this. You know what I mean? So they know for sure what they're getting. I think with TradFi, and I want you to speak to this too, Nate and Mo, I think what they're looking for is just security and certainty that, listen, I know it's volatile. It's no different than trading in the stock market, but I at least want to know that it's within my control, that I'm going to get completely blown away or that, I can win. They don't want it to be up to something that they can't at least have a say or control in. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, for me, I'll leave the TradFi element for Nate. But when we talk about data, especially off-chain data, sports is something we're all passionate about. But the issue isn't seeing how accurate this data is. It's actually access to the data itself and equal access amongst different sports teams, sports leagues, national leagues, regardless of what the sport is. Mm-hmm. So for me, we focused really on from like a fintech angle in terms of what we can do with this data, but there are so many different applications that we can have with this layer, and that's really what excites me with SlamX. Naturally, we're starting with the data we have on chain, but that's just the beginning. As we can start to aggregate different data sources in different verticals, and for me, sport is a massive vertical because once you have that data, it's the clubs want access to that data to understand more about themselves and about their competitors, but then the fans want access to that data. We spoke about poly markets as well, being able to predict who's going to score the next goal or who's going to get the next putt or something like that. And adding in what you were saying with AI, it becomes super exciting as well. And then the proof of humanity is like we've seen with Sam Altman, I think with WorldCoin scanning the iris. We've also got a less invasive one called, I think it is proof of humanity protocol where they scan your palm. And what they're looking for, is the recognition. I think that's Terrence and Co. So full disclosure, we are investors in that. And we did help on the tokenomics of at least V1 of humanity protocol as well. So that's something that again is a solution. But when we're thinking about all of these different solutions, it's just like there's different layers. We need different levels of access to be able to have a fully thought out solution that's befitting of an ecosystem. And I went off on a complete tangent, so I'll
no, that was good stuff.
Dude, you were like reading my mind because I was going to ask everybody to play fantasy with data, and what kind of things should people be building? What actually now can they be building with this, again, unified data set? What are things in your guys' kind of areas, your expertise, that you picture people are going to do with these data sets? What do those products look like?
This is exactly it. And for us, even though Web3 is permissionless, very few people can actually access it because of the friction points that are there. But as an industry, we're coming to a point where access can become seamless as well. And for me, that's one of the bigger challenges is how do you onboard people in Web2? And it's not for the financialization. And I think, Hudah, you hit the nail on the head. You'll invest in crypto, but you've never invested in any stocks. And I think a lot of people coming in who haven't come from a TradFi background, myself included, it's the same thing. I'm happy to invest in crypto. I'm not so sure about investing in any other kind of financial instruments. But for the average person who doesn't invest in anything, not even in their own health, having access to sports data, having access to other data that's meaningful to them, it might even be which anime is trending because they're massive anime fans. For example, being able to have access to that, then that data becomes meaningful to them. And these are different onboarding mechanisms for us to bring people into Web3 without them necessarily knowing what the tech stack is on the back end, but more so there is something cool that can come out of this.
Love it. I just, by the way, I just jogged my memory. I've invested in like 2 stocks ever. They're psychedelic mushroom like research companies. But so I am a TradFi investor, guys. So hope that gets me a little more credibility here. I'm trying to find. I want to steer this towards token. Paul, did you have something, by the way?
Oh, I was just good. I thought you were going to veer off into Terrence McKenna.
Oh yeah, that can be the second hour, dude. We love that.
I'm all about it.
Let's go.
There's by the way, I mean, this is random, but that whole world is a big part of this space. I think in the best of ways, but again, probably a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I think a financial instrument's a financial instrument, whether it's a trading card or, I mean, where Nate and I think spend a lot of our mindset is in these financial instruments that maybe come from private permission systems, and the data, the data still has a story because the private data is abstracted away, but you can still follow the data of the wallets on chain, which I think is really important. For me, it's when I speak and I think TradFi and really Web 2.5 and in those types of instruments, it's lowering the mid back office costs, and data allows you to do that. Data and AI allow you to do that. And I think that just brings more value, which is why you're seeing the BlackRocks and everybody get into this space. They understand that it can really lower the value of that asset being delivered out in such a massive way. And then, I think for people in the future, because not everybody is great at finance or has an interest in it, hopefully the AI tools are doing the thinking for you. It's like invest into this and press a couple buttons and AI will read the data and report back and give you the financial security and comfort and accountability around those assets to feel like you're in the game and you're not just left out in the wind.
Yeah, I think Mo hit the nail on the head with the word access. I think that's what this all comes down to. And even on the TradFi side, there's a lot of data that is actually gated. Think about a Bloomberg terminal, for instance, which is very rich in data, but guess what? That's going to cost you $25,000 to get access to that. And so if you think about having the ability to access rich data sets, and not have limitations on those, and then to what several people here were speaking of, you start thinking about bringing in AI to that and being able to go through those data sets and train. I just think it's endless possibilities. I think the question was, where does this all head? What kind of instruments can we see? I think the only limitation is the creativity of the developers. It's really that simple. And that may sound a little cliche, but when you don't have data or when data is not gated, it opens up the world, right? The possibilities are truly endless. So that's what I think is exciting.
There's also a big part of that too to throw in there, Hudah, is like, think about like when you look at Netflix and you look at all the algorithms and you look at through all the sorting stuff, that stuff matters too, man. They look at that data and all that stuff that comes from all these users. There's massive amount of people. It's in development. Paul, probably, this more than anyone as well. It's those little small nuances. It's those little things that don't always seem flashy, but are the most important, like creating filter systems and being able to have sorting algorithms and all the data that's associated with that stuff. That's the backbone of all of this. Anyone, you could throw up a pretty UI and make it look good. And, you think you got a product, but that's not really the product. The meat and potatoes that goes underneath all that is the development that makes that possible. More importantly, the enriched data that makes it make sense when it comes across to the user. People take that for granted often.
It's the heartbeat. It's the lifeblood, without a doubt.
Amen.
You're only as good as that heartbeat, and everything else will spawn off that for sure.
Yeah, this era, the Web 2 era, has become really a lot about like the flashy, pretty UI. So like people have gotten so caught up, and I think that was like a big product of Steve Jobs and everything he was doing at Apple. But people got so caught up in that over optimization mindset that it kind of like pushed us back a little bit. And that's why I love Web 3. I kind of like that it's been a hard reset technologically, where we have to build from like a ground zero again, because it's given us a rich perspective on what worked, what hasn't, and how we can push forward.
All right, I want to. This could be dicey, man. Maybe a little bit towards a token called Slam. Again, I don't know what can be said about a Slam token, so I can kind of keep this broad for now as far as what is a token's role in an ecosystem of data, an ecosystem that's going to have all kinds of applications built off that data, an ecosystem, and we'll get to this in a moment too, that is the data's powering content. Again, SlamX. Chris, with your show, The Daily Hustle. I've got Chain Reactor, you guys see here. Nate, with your Crypto Prime show. Mo, do you have a show, by the way? And Paul, do you guys do content at all?
I'm terrible at it. My company, my marketing teams like you need to do more of it. I've been on a lot of podcasts. I do have the bull in the China shop that I write about, but I haven't for a while. I don't know. I'm just old school. I like going shaking hands, kissing babies, and meeting people and having coffee discussions and getting out from behind my desk. I'm not great at it, but I feel like I got a lot of stuff to say.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Mo's chatting here. Actually, Mo's awesome. He's over in the YouTube chat, like chatting with people. And he dropped a comment there that his connection dropped. I was wondering if he dropped because we mentioned the T word. So I'll wait for him to get back till we can get to, any kind of token talk. But maybe while he's not here, we're free to just speculate and have fun anyways, as far as a token in the ecosystem. Chris, you could probably answer some of this as far as...
I'd love to. I can't give too much of the details, but I can give you, listen, I know this is what everybody wants, but like...
I'm happy you went to Chris there, by the way, 'cause I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say right now either. So
I know. So listen, guys, we can't give it away, but we can tell you the idea behind it and why. So a lot of what we realized in CryptoSlam, and we're really like an engineering team. That's really how everyone at CryptoSlam is a developer of some sort. It's funny, even the people that don't work on the developer team. So like the cool thing about it is we really focus on not only on the products and the user experience, but on the use case. Like it has to make sense. So we didn't want to launch a token or do anything just for aesthetics, just to say, oh, we're launching a token because everybody did. It had to make sense to push the grand vision forward, and it had to be something that people could it could bring them value, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. It's bringing value to people. And what was interesting about Slam is it's kind of essentially reward people not only for being creators, not only for accessing that data on Slam Chain. Like you're going to be able to access that data on Slam Chain and also pay, as per your usage, stuff like that through using Slam. There's going to be stuff where people are going to commission the DAO in order to develop projects. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different use cases that we're essentially going to be utilizing this for.
Bookmark that DAO comment because I want to come back.
Yeah, we'll definitely get in that. But the general idea behind it, though, is to make sure that not just the idea, this buzzword of utility, but that it's making sense that anything that it interacts with, it is bringing it all together. It's acting like a glue, and it's pushing forward whatever that narrative is. So if it's the data narrative, if it's the media narrative, if it's whatever that is, the idea behind this is that it's bringing utility and value to those users that are constantly feeding into it. So it's like a flywheel effect. That's the beauty of how kind of Slam works. It continuously feeds the ecosystem, and that also in turns feeds back to the users. So it's not an aesthetic token. It's not just there to say, oh, we're going to launch a token, pump and dump. That's it. It actually continuously feeds throughout the ecosystem.
Okay, so let me see if I can lead you here with this a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Like how... I almost want to chat it to you first and see if it's cool or not, if it's kosher. Okay.
Let it fly, and I'll let you. I'll let you know. I'm a pretty.
I'll
pretty
take the heat
guy.
if it's wrong. No, but there is something interesting about bringing. Okay, I think we can all assume there's going to be just tremendous applications built off this data, but there's all kinds of services I use that I'm paying some sort of fee. And to me now that's a logical place to insert a token, and just one of many places you can use that token. Is this something that then can benefit? Well, first off, in the DAO, we'll have use cases for that token. But like you said, I think maybe even commissioning stuff, applications, funding, grants, right? Helping to fund builders. But also like products, platforms that are the ones who have the data, who are then attaching it to, I guess I could say Slam Chain, right? Putting the data on chain, directly benefit from that data being on chain through the token.
Yes, so that is indeed correct. And
Wild.
not only that, we're going to be focusing on collaborations and partnerships with other people. So like you're not only just going to see Slam token being utilized throughout the Slam ecosystem, but it's going to be utilized in other people's ecosystems. So that's the general idea, is to bridge. That's our whole vision. Like the whole vision is being the glue. Like I said, when I say like the Google or the Web3 or the underlying layer, we want to be the data that's underneath all of this, not just the data that is underneath, Polygon or Solana. We're going to be the data underneath all of this idea of this unified Web3. So it doesn't matter where you're from. That the beauty of data is that could be aggregated and pulled across chain. That could be anywhere. So it's kind of crazy. It's so simplistic, but yet at the same time it's intricate, and it's beautiful how it unifies everything. So whether you're on Polygon, whether you're on Solana, whether you're on Polkadot, whether you're on whatever chain that you prefer, you're going to need that data. And data, the beauty of data is it's a lot more easier to sit there and transfer that across, multitude of protocols. Because if you need the data on how many users are in doing a particular thing in Web3 right now, like how many GameFi users are there across the whole ecosystem, how many SocialFi users are there across the entire Web3 ecosystem, being able to sort through all of that. Imagine you had an experience where you can go in and just imagine this. Like, I can't give you guys too much, but imagine you have an experience where you can go in and you can get access to all of that information, no matter what chain you're on, or look at this more holistically. And that's kind of like the general idea of this and why we're really excited. I think people are just starting to get it. I don't think that they really understood it at first, but then now that you're seeing it click, it's like, wow. And that's why you see us so excited about this, because we're finally going to be able to bridge a lot of those gaps.
I can tell you, dude, it is there. There's a lot here to wrap the head around. It's taken me a while, and you guys watch and know that. You've asked me questions before, and some of it I either couldn't answer, right, because there's things that couldn't be said yet, and obviously still can't. There are some pretty awesome announcements coming. Some of them I couldn't answer because it's even, again, we've got a very technical team. It's a different bunch of guys, very technical, very crypto-oriented, but who are building something that I do think is game-changing here. But it is starting to unlock. It's starting to unlock in my brain, and I'm starting to get just a different kind of excited about it. And again, it's just that idea of all this data coming into one place and just, man, incentivizing, but also, encouraging people to just build with it. I think some of those products are going to be amazing. My brain goes to some of those things you said before, Chris. Prediction markets, building out. Look, we had teased at one point in LLM, and it was incredible. What was that called? Slam AI? I think it was Slam AI.
Yeah. We're still we can't give too much away, but we're still focusing on building a lot of those products. We have a multitude of products. We're always constantly building something. Like I said, we're an engineering company. I actually want Paul to speak on a lot of this as well. But we have prediction markets you can work on, LLMs, explorers indexes, risk assessment platforms, influence tracking, valuation tooling. I know that one will make Nate a little bit. Yeah, like, the valuation tooling alone. Think of VCs when they get their hands on this stuff.
Tell you this, if you've been using CryptoSlam over the years, you've probably seen little pieces, little ideas seeded that were on the platform at one point. Years ago, we did have a valuation tool or a valuation algorithm that did assign values to different NFTs, and some of those things may not be there now, but it's for probably for reasons. You may see those reappear one day. Kind of like, hey, we had this X copy artwork that saw the light of day a couple of weeks back, and we learned in that he had assets in his artwork, let's say 5, 6, 7 years ago that have shown up much later in current artwork. You'll see some of that stuff probably return in some form or another. It is the right opportunity, though, to tell you guys, again, whatever applications are in the works now and are coming, you're going to want a .slam domain. I think it's safe to say you're probably going to have priority access to some of those tools, to those platforms, maybe first dibs, something like that. You want to grab your .slam domain, guys, so make sure you go to SlamNet. Chris, it's SlamNet, okay?
Yeah, SlamNet.
.xyz/claim. I may have said it wrong in the last show in a really funny way. I'll tell you guys that after. But go claim your .slam domain. I'm Hudah.slam. I locked it up. I'm not giving anybody that. Get your name.
Paul, I know Paul. Yeah. Paul, you were going to jump in on something. I wanted to hear that.
I 100% agree. This is what you said around the engineering side of CryptoSlam. I mean, I feel like this is a stack of technology and ingenuity that's that needs to be broadcasted as it's evolved into such a collateralized. I don't want to say just not investment advice, but like the collateralization of the of this data infrastructure for me is what I'm really excited about with the cleverness of what Mo and his team have brought into this from a token economic standpoint, this evolution from a crypto slam engineering company to be able to evolve into biz dev monetization partnerships, and its ability for anybody to leverage the Slam token to plug into this ecosystem is literally transformational. And I'm really excited to see this thing move to that next level.
A comment in the chat here too. This is from Mike Bennett asking about this is maybe Slam chain focused ecosystem. Is it gas free? And I said yes. I think it is. My understanding it's
Yes,
gasless
indeed
ecosystem.
it is. Yes,
yeah,
it
which is awesome, and it gets some of my wheels spinning here too, because this ties to something we said earlier. Even though there's no gas fees, I think to some degree data can be metered. I don't know if that's going to differ by
that
product.
Is going to play a part of it. That's going to play a big part of it. So data being metered is going to play a part of it, and the token's going to play a big part of that as well. That's why we can't give too much away. But what I will say is the reason why it's so crucial to, at least a part of the reason why it's crucial to get those Slam domains. Like I have hustlehat.slam, all that good stuff. Is because, guys, we have a governance system. Like we're really focusing. Like when you start to read the actual like paper and you break it down, like we're really kind of pulling from methodologies that we know really work. We really sat down. Like Randy sat down, our CEO, who's incredible at what he does. He has like a mind where he could take all of these pieces, look at it over like the overview, and put it all together in such a way where it's just like wow. And you sit back, you're like, this is awesome. So he's more like the visionary for this. And the idea behind it is that it's very much like how a government would operate, a democratic republic. Like you're going to have the Senate, you're going to have those people that are contributing to this overall, they're going to be able to make decisions. The House of Slam, like this plays a massive role. You guys as the community, you got to remember, we realize a lot of content creators get a lot of slack. People say, oh, content creators have too much power, say in the industry now. Like we actually are the opposite. We're rebels. We want to give back to the creator economy. We want to give back to the community. We want the community to be what's driving all of this. It's at the heart of everything we do. Like we could build data and engineer cool stuff, but if it isn't for the people that are going to be using it every day and all those people that are going to be creating all these incredible things, we want to give you the tools in order to do that. That's our goal here, is to provide you with the resources and the tooling and the education and the advisement and all the people that you see that are on calls like this. And then in turn, when you have the Slam Senate and you have all those governance people that have the wisdom of the industry, they can kind of guide people through that and allow them to be the great creators that they are. And that's generally the idea behind this. It's all driven by this creator economy. It's pretty cool.
I think just recently UAE came out with a new DAO legal framework, which is going to help a lot of these organizations interact with traditional financial systems. So I'm not sure where we're going to go with the Slam DAO, but it's hopefully we get into that jurisdiction, as this is changing rapidly. Governance.
Yeah.
In general.
DAO is one of the things I'm most excited for. Like I really am, because I don't know that anybody has cracked that nut yet. In fact, I know they haven't.
No.
And I love the 8coin DAO. I love everything they're doing. And I also have been a part of the Little Nouns DAO. I had a show that was funded by them. But I also see how, man, there's been challenges along the way from in all of them, and they admit it. Like this is not just trying to knock on any of them. They know that they are very challenging. It could just be that the structures, how these were initially launched, maybe it sounds good on paper, and then in practice it doesn't work exactly right. What I can tell you here with this DAO, without being an expert on this one by any means, but I know it's different. I know the maybe the structure of it and the layout and maybe certain timeframes for certain parts of this DAO are different than anything I've seen before, with the goal of actually making it one that actually works. It works in a different kind of way, and it gives a lot of power to the community to help, man, again, build out this ecosystem of applications, to put this data to use, to put out great products, to help fuel the content. And that's the part I can probably speak the best on, is the content and how I think this will all power it. Again, Chris, I know you can, Nate, you as well, but I've always looked at like a group, like a unified group of content creators all pushing with, maybe the same backing data, same narratives, kind of all working off the same info set, one that we now trust. We verify it. We know it's correct because it's on chain, as something that's incredibly powerful. It's not stepping on each other's toes. It's all kind of pushing a similar message because we're using all the same data. So SlamNet, I'm excited about. I'm excited to see what these shows, SlamX. Excited to see what these shows look like when they are powered by a much bigger data set than they are right now, with all kinds of graphics that I know I'll be going to the DAO asking to fund somebody who's going to put me together some graphics, some charts, some graphs, cut an intro for me, all kinds of stuff like that. And I believe, Chris, people can also, I guess, I don't know. There's some kind of voting mechanic to get different content creators on the platform too.
Yeah, so like the .slam NFT holders, you have it pulled up right there, so that people can submit what's called Slam improvement proposals. And they're submitted by the NFT holders, and then as it says, passed by the House of Slam for like the ratification process, and then the DAO administrator basically enacts all of that. So people are going to be able to come to us and essentially say, "Hey, imagine you are." You chop and screw videos, like that's your thing, or imagine you like to create charts and stuff like that, and you need data sets in order to do that. Like anything that you can imagine. Like the idea is to truly create a creator economy, and the DAO sort of oversees all of this. The DAO is a big part of this to make sure that things are being carried out the proper way, that it makes sense, that it's pushing the ecosystem forward, and that's like the general idea. But yeah, no, it's going to be pretty cool. The way it's set up is no different than how you see a government would be set up, and that's what's probably the most interesting thing about it.
Yeah, it was really fascinating the way this was set up. And if you go to data and you go to Google, I think they had a tagline which was "Do good or don't be evil" or something like that. And this DAO and where we're going with this data, I mean, just think about that parallel. Map that on to where we are with Google today with data and how it's retargeted against us and used against us in nefarious ways. Like we're in the same boat right now. So this DAO is a really important DAO for multiple reasons. DAO to be evil.
Yeah.
Dude,
Well,
it's good.
I want to say this. What role do you think, I want to pass Nate, what role do you think governance like this could play? Because TradFi typically, obviously it lives by a different set of rules. And the first thing that comes to my mind is like, how does this work when marrying TradFi people? And, is this a blocker? Is this an add-on? Like, how do you see this playing a role in the TradFi and, merging this with crypto and tech and blockchain?
Yeah. Well, first we have to go to first principles and recognize that most people in TradFi have no idea what a DAO is. So when I think about, my role and what I'm excited about and what I'm doing in content creation with Crypto Prime is really helping people understand what a DAO is and the different forms of DAOs out there and the pros and cons and differences. I think that's important. That's just one example. But, as I think about Web3, evolving and getting built out, those sorts of basic items are where we have to have education, and that's going to be my focus again. That's what I'm excited about. From a TradFi perspective, I think knowing that governance is always something that's important on the TradFi side. I mean, think about any company that has a board of directors and governance mechanisms in place. TradFi wants to see those same mechanisms on the crypto side clearly. And so I really think it's that simple. And I think it's just helping TradFi understand how those governance mechanisms work. I would argue that those governance mechanisms are going to be much stronger on the crypto side because of the transparency that we talked about before. And I think that'll help give confidence to TradFi, but they have to understand it to begin with.
Do you think in the
That's
future,
where the heavy lift is.
Do you think in the future, like I've always envisioned this and I found it really interesting. I always envisioned a future where companies could potentially be run off these systems. Do you think there's a future where, let's say, the board of directors and voting and just how, businesses are set up and structured? Do you think that there could be a frame? Obviously, we have legal regulations and things to overcome, but a place in the future for TradFi businesses to be set up on infrastructures like this to where it could be transparent, voting, all that?
100%. Again, I'm of the belief that is where we are heading longer term.
Really?
It's just a matter of when. Yeah. So are we talking, a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades? I don't know, but that is the direction of travel.
Feels like with where the temperature is globally right now, it's ripe for a lot more accountability. Because I think when you break it down, is what we're talking about. If you had to cryptographically sign something on chain, it's accountable in a governance mechanism. And it has to be on-chain governance. And I don't think we're there yet on how we've figured all of that out. But I think that's been the part that's been missing most. A lot of people are coming out with new on-chain governance models. And I think that's the the inceptor of all of this.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing in the TradFi space, and this isn't everybody clearly, but there are a lot of participants who don't want that accountability, right? You know,
Truth.
It's funny because crypto always gets talked about. It's always the scams and the FTXs and the headlines, but nobody ever talks about those things on the TradFi side, at least in the context of what's going on in crypto. And so I think what you're in on, Paul, I mean, that accountability is very important. And I know I keep saying the same thing throughout this entire show, but it's transparency, it's accountability, it's access.
Right.
Those are all really important things, whether we're talking about TradFi or DeFi. I think that DeFi will be leading the charge on those.
Yeah, I mean, just recently, you guys saw the Uniswap Labs recent deal with Unity. I mean, that was a hot mess. And then you saw, who was it? Billy Gao from Stanford's. He's part of the blockchain consortium or club at Stanford, and they're all part of the governance. And he's been like very vocal about it on X, and that was a hot mess. Like that was like an FU directly to the DAO. That was rough.
Accountability is a big issue. Like, you know, honestly, like I said, I think right now the technology is new, so it's complicated to people. You know, we're still at the point where it just, you have to do this. There's so many different hoops that you have to jump through. But I think more and more, like I said, as abstractions become, we've said the word, but we've never been able to get to the heart of it because there were so many other small developmental things that we had to figure out first. People don't realize just basically connecting things together like Legos, just like children, was hard to do in this space a couple of years ago. So like we're just now being able to really dig into some of the type of development that's been going on in Web 2 for a really long time. So I think the goal, at least for Web 3, in my personal opinion, is it needs to look and feel exactly like what people already know. Like if you're talking about Web 3 and blockchain and buzzwords, that's an automatic turnoff. Like I could speak from experience in gaming. I've been developing in gaming for a very long time. So if you even bring up in that sphere like blockchain game, people are automatically like, I don't want nothing to do with this. But if you give them a fun experience, and it could be with anything, it's with data, especially it's with anything you do in marketplaces, it's with prediction market. If you give people an experience where it's as easy as just saying, like, you know, first principle thinking when it comes to development process, it's all about that one click, getting the user to exactly what it is they want as soon as possible. So saying, hey, this is the experience I'm looking for, you provide that experience. Once Web3 can center on that, that's when I think having those systems running in the background is just going to be an automated thing. And that's when we'll start to see this really take off. But I think regulation is what's holding us back right now. We can jump into that whenever you're ready, Hudah, but I think it's really regulation that's holding us all back.
Yeah, I want to be respectful to everybody's time here, too. Initially, it was a 30-minute chat. Again, everybody was awesome and flexible with the hour. So temperature check, if people have to get going, good to wrap here. And
yeah, sorry, I got about 5 more minutes. I got to prep for another call at the top of the hour for me here in Panama.
Yeah, I've got to run here shortly, but just real quick, I do want to, you mentioned the regulatory topic, and from my perspective, that is the single most important factor to watch right now. And we don't have to get into the election. I have some thoughts in terms of, you know, depending upon which way that goes, how the
please say it. No, we love that. That's what I love.
Yeah, well, I mean, look,
I love it.
You know, putting politics aside, the prevailing thought in the marketplace right now is that if you have a Trump administration, they'll take a much more friendly approach to crypto. Nobody knows that for sure, right? We just have to go off of what we're hearing and seeing. And the assumption has to be that if you look at a Harris administration, that it would be status quo out of what we've seen from the Biden. I just think if we're sitting here today and we're handicapping it, that has to be the assumption. I think more important, though, we have to have a comprehensive crypto regulatory framework put in place. Congress needs to take the lead on that. There needs to be a bipartisan solution put forth. And I've talked about this so much in the past that we should be leading innovation. And instead, what we're leading in is regulation. And until that's there's a more of a balance there. And I'm a big believer in that balance. I think it should be both, right? I've talked about this before. You can't just innovate without any regulation. There has to be some balance there because you do have to protect people. But right now, what we're doing is regulate. And the innovation is you know, an afterthought. And so those two things need to come into balance. And I think we need to have a comprehensive regulatory framework put in place for the crypto industry. So all of the things that we're talking about today, developers and anybody operating the space can feel comfortable from a regulatory standpoint that they are free to innovate. And I'm just a huge believer in that. And again, I'm very respectful of the guardrails that we have in place in TradFi. There's a lot of good in that, but you can also overdo those guardrails and that's where you kill innovation. So I just want to leave with that point because it's something that is a passion of mine.
Yeah.
Paul, can you tell us a little, Paul, about, like, I wanted to get your closing thoughts on, you're a developer, and it stood out to me immediately after what Nate just said. How does that affect you building in the space and you with clients and you just overall your experience as an engineer in this space? Like, how do you take that into stride? Does it stop you from approaching certain things? Like, that's really a really interesting topic.
I haven't engineered in 20 years, but obviously we've got 80 of them in our company. You know, I want to say this. I'm down here in LATAM because we're in gray market. And I've been in LATAM and I've been in Web3 and LATAM for many, many years. And I think these are the areas that you can stand up digital assets, you can tokenize down here, and you can throw some mud against the wall and see what sticks. At the end of the day, the majority of the capital and the deals in Q3 of this past year still evolved from the United States. 43% of all money in the space came from the US. So I look at these different markets, again, like LATAM, we know Singapore, we know Dubai, UAE, all of these guys are really set to explode onto the scene. I think Nate's right, and they have to be the leaders, the United States, in this space, because the money is coming from there. And I think it's really a lot of brain trust comes from there too. So hopefully they'll be able to lead that way. But from a developer standpoint, yeah, it's tricky because we take on a variety of different projects all around the world. So we always take a lens of regulatory and legislation first. We do a lot of advising in this space. We've worked for token generated event incubators in Europe before. And I always take a business angle first before I do anything technically.
Makes sense.
Yeah, dude, great stuff. Perfect stopping point here. I see some awesome comments in the chat, by the way, people who really get it, just the power and the importance of transparency and real-time data. Mike Bennett saying federal budgets on the block. Yes, yes. Guys, final reminder here, go get your .slam domain. It is slamnet.xyz/claim. Get it, just get it. And I'm going to keep hammering that home here over the next few days, couple weeks here at the very least. Throw everybody up on the screen here real quick. You should be following these guys. Paul Troon Tech. This is on X here for Paul Dubé. Awesome guy. Paul, really awesome to have you on the show here today. Certainly need you on here solo as well. Nate Geraci at Nate Geraci. So there we go. Nate, of course, great to have you again, man.
This was fun as always. I appreciate the invite. Always happy to hop on.
Yeah, appreciate you. And I think we will end up doing this again. Here was Mo. Make sure you're following him. I definitely want to get him back. I want to pick his brain about meme coins a bit too, but great to have him. And then there is Hustle Hat. Great to chat with you, Chris. Make sure you're following CryptoSlam.io. And very important for this one as well, guys, SlamNet.xyz. So putting that on your radar. Guys, thank you for joining us for the special episode of Chain Reactor here. We'll see you on the afternoon show at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time right here on SlamX Official on YouTube. It's SlamX.io over on X. Guys, have a great day. We'll see you.